Hello, everyone. I'm Major Garrett in Washington. Tonight on America Decides, the world, in the regal form of heads of state, is arriving in Rome for the funeral tomorrow of Pope Francis. That, in the strictest sense, is not news. But the global appraisal of Pope Francis's reign and his emphasis on outreach to the marginalized and dispossessed will bump uncomfortably into harsh rhetorical and governing reality across Christendom. Migration is viewed with suspicion or hostility in Europe and America, for sure. Aggressive application of laws in America have in recent weeks led to the jailing of undocumented immigrants, some with alleged criminal records, shipped to a maximum security prison in El Salvador, others to Guantanamo Bay in Cuba. Evidence of these alleged crimes, according to available court documents, has at times been credible, other times circumstantial, and still other times borderline conjecture. Today in Milwaukee, a judge was arrested for allegedly trying to help an undocumented migrant evade arrest by federal law enforcement officials. The FBI director cheered that arrest on social media. Meanwhile, court cases seeking the evidentiary or procedural basis for contested arrests and deportations, well, they grind on. Pope Francis was unequivocal up until his death about the need for Christians and the world to extend some manner of compassion to migrants, legal or illegal. This week in Washington, a federal task force was formed to investigate acts of anti-Christian bias. What Christians do or do not do to heed Pope Francis's call to help migrant populations may well flow through what it means to be a Christian in America. And a question for the future looms. Will authorities punish acts of assistance, even if carried out in the name of compassion? Pope Francis was, as we all know by now, the first non-European pope in 1,300 years. He presided over a Catholic flock that has seen its largest growth from 1975 occur not in Europe or America, but in Africa and Asia. Catholicism has been, for much of Francis's life, a globally migratory faith. That reality about migration and reactions to it must therefore intersect with the politics of our day and words soon to be spoken in hushed tones about Pope Francis. Words like legacy, impact, theology, and advocacy. We start tonight with Nancy Cordes at the White House and Aaron Navarro, who joins us from Rome. Nancy, let me start with you on the North Lawn. The president has arrived in Rome, and he suggested before leaving that he might have a kind of busy schedule, lots of meetings, but the time available, as I read the schedule, might not be there.
Right. It's a really quick trip. It's obviously packed with commemorations to the late Pope and his funeral service. And what the president just told reporters on Air Force One a short time ago was that he doesn't know that it's appropriate for him to actually schedule one-on-one meetings with various leaders while he is in Rome, even though it is technically his first overseas trip of his second presidential term. He said, you know, he might talk to them here and there when he sees them, but that he doesn't think that it would follow protocol to try to be setting up meetings and doing business when he's only going to be in Rome and at the Vatican for half the weekend.
Aaron Navarro in Rome. Can you set the scene for us a bit?
Yeah, President Trump will be here for about 14 hours and 36 minutes, according to when he's scheduled to leave and when he came in around 10:54 p.m. locally. And what we've seen from some of the foreign dignitaries leading up to today is there are a couple that say they want to meet with President Trump. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen is looking to meet with Trump, and their potentially first meeting in his second term. And since President Trump launched a lot of targeted tariffs towards Europe, Ukrainian President Zelensky could potentially also be meeting with Trump. That's someone he said on Air Force One to reporters he's looking to meet with, though we'll see if his plans are in flux due to the strikes in Kyiv. But as Nancy mentioned, it could be pretty just casual during the sidelines of Pope Francis's funeral. And just here near St. Peter's Square, it's definitely gotten quiet as the visitors are not allowed to enter at this moment in the lead up to tomorrow's funeral. But certainly with President Trump and many other world leaders attending tomorrow, the scene will be busy, and we'll be watching, reading lips, watching seat assignments to see what these world leaders are saying to each other.
Thank you so much, Aaron. Back to you, Nancy, the North Lawn of the White House. Before boarding Marine One, President Trump was asked about talking to Chinese leader President Xi. Let's hear what he had to say.
You said you spoke with President Xi. Have you spoken to him since the tariffs? When did you last speak?
I don't want to comment on that, but I've spoken to him many times.
So, Nancy, how I read that is, yes, they've spoken many times. That's a fact. The key fact, the unknown fact, has it happened since the tariff confrontation began?
Right. And the whole reason this came up, Major, is because the president made a very improbable claim in a new interview with Time magazine. He was asked if President Xi had called him to try to negotiate some way out of this massive tariff war that we now find ourselves in, with the U.S. imposing 145% tariffs on China and China imposing 125% tariffs on us. And President Trump responded, yes, he has called me. And the reason that's surprising is that, first of all, if she had called, we probably would have been alerted. And second, if President Xi had called, they would probably be in discussions now, because U.S. businesses are feeling a great deal of pain as a result of these tariffs. And what we have heard over and over again from the Chinese and from the Treasury Secretary and other White House officials is that there are no conversations going on at all. And that's why reporters pressed President Trump to explain exactly when did President Xi call you? And was it during this presidential term? Was it after you imposed the tariffs? And he simply said he didn't want to give any details, and he got onto Marine One, which appeared to some to be an effort to walk back that definitive claim he made in the Time magazine article, in which he said that Xi had actually picked up the phone and tried to reach him.
It sounded like a walk back, and it looked like a walk back. Nancy, thank you so much. Aaron, back to you in Rome. Explain to the audience what the size of the crowd is expected to be tomorrow, the morning, how it's going to proceed through the funeral, and then what happens next.
Yeah, thousands are expected to be at this funeral tomorrow. And in the last couple of days, hundreds of thousands have been here as mourners to visit, quickly see the coffin of Pope Francis. And what's known as the conclave, and I'm sure some of the viewers may know that movie, is expected to happen weeks after this funeral. And it's a secret process, not necessarily a lot of the political meat grinding that we see in U.S. campaigns, but there certainly are cardinals advocating for one another, maybe advocating for one certain cardinal in particular. And you will see from the Vatican white smoke when they have made their choice for the next pope.
Aaron Navarro in Rome, and Nancy Cordes, North Lawn of the White House. Thanks so very much.